All right, guys, class is in session. Take your seats for part 3 of Stanley Kubrick, talking about the later half of this film legend's career.
Oh, wow!
If you ladies leave my island, if you survive recruit training, you will be a weapon. You will be a minister of death praying for war. But until that day, you are pukes. You are the lowest form of life on earth. You are not even human being.
There was a full 7 years until he released his next film, 1987's Full Metal Jacket, arguably the best movie ever made about the Vietnam War, noted for its lack of moral judgment. Full Metal Jacket has a 2-part structure. The first half following a group of young men enduring the trials of basic training to become Marines to fight in the Vietnam War. And the second half of the film follows Privates Joker and Rafterman as they go out into the field during the time of the Tet Offensive to get a first-hand account of the atrocities of war. The themes in Full Metal Jacket, as in all of Kubrick's later films, are difficult to define. The movie deals with the limitations of man, of the experience of the individual in a situation too vast to quantify, the moral responsibility of being both a human and a soldier, the connection between war and sex, and a criticism of masculinity.
What's wrong with masculinity?
Well, you guys just tend to overdo it. Among other achievements, Full Metal Jacket was the launching pad for actor Vincent D'Onofrio, with his absolutely haunting and mesmerizing performance as Private Pyle.
What side was that, Private Pyle?
Sir, left side, sir!
Are you sure, Private Pyle?
Sir, yes, sir!
What side was that, Private Pyle?
Sir, right side, sir!
Fun fact, Kubrick also had his youngest daughter, Vivian, compose the score for Full Metal Jacket under the pseudonym Abigail Mead.
Teacher, how did you feel about Full Metal Jacket?
Well, it was the first Stanley Kubrick film that I had ever seen, and I became completely mesmerized by the story. And this is where I kind of got a crush on Vincent D'Onofrio. Like, I've been tracking this actor ever since. Like, he is so great.
Teacher, how about that drill instructor, R. Lee Ermey? He's like the go-to military man.
Yeah, this movie made R. Lee Ermey's career, who was a former U.S. drill instructor for the Marines. But originally, he was hired just to be a technical advisor, but like, after reading the script, he was like, I gotta have this part, and he taped this ridiculous audition. At first, Kubrick was like, there's no way you're gonna be able to pull this off. But then, after viewing the audition, he was like, oh my god, you're genius for the part, totally hired him, and let him come up with like 50% of his dialogue, especially the colorful insults that he uses on the new recruits. Like Napoleon, there were other films that Kubrick meant to make, but they never made it to the big screen. In the 90s, Kubrick worked on putting together a ton of research for a movie about the Holocaust called The Aryan Papers.
Why didn't he make it?
Well, Space Brain, he didn't make the Aryan Papers, one, because he felt like Schindler's List dealt with a lot of the same material that he was going to talk about, and two, he also felt relieved because while doing the research for this movie, he became really depressed, and like he didn't want to have to keep himself in this mental zone, like thinking about all these horrible things that went on during the Holocaust. In fact, his wife Christiane was really excited when he decided not to do the movie and was like, oh, thank you.
Teacher, is there anything that makes you depressed watching?
Yes, documentaries about 9/11, credit card companies, banking systems, economics in general, our political system, pretty much everything about the working systems that we have in place today that are completely bloated and corrupt. Kubrick then started working on another failed film, AI, which he originally set out to direct, but then later changed his mind, wanting to produce it and having Steven Spielberg direct it, but then later postponing the project altogether because he was waiting for advances in computer technology.
What was he waiting for?
Well, CGI was kind of right around the corner, and at the time, they couldn't really make the robot boy that he wanted to make with practical effects. It would be a full 12 years before Kubrick would release his next film, 1999's Eyes Wide Shut, which would be his last.
Do you mind telling me what kind of charade ends with somebody turning up dead?
One of the notable things about this shoot is that it holds the Guinness World Record for longest consecutive movie shoot at a whopping 400 days. In fact, Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman worked on this for 4 years at the height of their careers, okay? At their peak. It's crazy. They really made a commitment to do this movie. The erotic drama received generally favorable reviews and became the highest grossing Kubrick film ever.
Teacher, how do you feel about Eyes Wide Shut as a movie?
Well, Space Brain, I love Eyes Wide Shut and get totally engrossed by it, trying to figure out the meanings behind the movie. What particularly interests me in Eyes Wide Shut is the theme of shattered perceptions of reality. In the movie, Dr. Bill Hartford's world is turned upside down after a conversation with his wife in which she reveals to him the abject lust she felt for a complete stranger who casually glanced at her only once during their marriage. The depths of his wife's passion for another man shatters his confidence in himself, his relationship, and the reality around him, and sets him on a disturbing journey discovering the dark side of desire, forcing him to open his eyes and adjust his entire worldview. On another level, I believe that Eyes Wide Shut contends with how the power elite manipulate the 99% through sexual and material desire in order to keep us distracted while they use and abuse the working class for their own ends.
I hate it when they do that.
Totes. I love Eyes Wide Shut. Okay, a lot of people are not into this movie, like people really don't want to talk about it, but I feel like it is just so layered, okay? There's just so many things going on in this film. It's one of my favorite movies to just think about and try to figure out what the deeper meaning that's going on within this film. There's so many conspiracy theories surrounding this movie. It's just the best, okay? It's one of my favorite Christmas time movies, all right? I watch it every Christmas. In fact, I watch it more than just Christmas times. I watch it 2 to 3 times a year. And I get mesmerized every time because it's just totally hypnotic. So good.
Teacher, I heard that 18 minutes were cut out of Eyes Wide Shut. What do you think?
Well, Space Brain, I feel like, just going on my instincts here, something was totally cut out, okay? I just know stuff was cut out of it, okay? I don't know how much it is. Nobody knows how much was cut out, okay? None of us, and we'll never find out. But I feel like it's totally a thing. And this rumor, it just plagues me because I think that Eyes Wide Shut is my favorite Kubrick film besides 2001: A Space Odyssey. And I would just give anything to see what his cut would be, okay? I'd give anything. It would give us the answers to everything. Stanley died in his home at the age of 70 from a heart attack 6 days after his initial screening of his final cut of Eyes Wide Shut for Warner Brothers and the stars of the movie.
Teacher, I heard that Stanley Kubrick was a recluse, never came out of his house.
All right, Space Brain, let's set the record straight for just a second. Throughout his career, Stanley valued and maintained his personal privacy as much as possible because he preferred to work outside the system. I mean, he chose to live in England rather than Hollywood, working out of his home and close to his studio, barely giving interviews. And this is why he was labeled as a recluse by the media. But I feel like this is total nonsense, okay? Stanley wasn't some weirdo Howard Hughes type who grew his fingernails and peed in jars. He was a sensitive, soft-spoken man with a wicked sense of humor. Kubrick was a family man and an animal lover, working in a household surrounded by his children and his pets. He was known to speak very proudly of his daughters to his friends and associates, and he even once left 15 pages of detailed notes on how to take care of his pets when he was forced to leave his home for shooting reasons. 15 pages, okay? 15 pages. Kubrick sought absolute creative control over his projects and felt that the trappings of fame were a nuisance. It wasn't about him, it was about his art. In fact, Kubrick was notorious for being shy when receiving compliments about his work. Instead, he would change the subject to talk about his admiration of other artists and their works.
Teacher, how do you feel about the subject of fame and how it affects an artist's work?
Well, I think fame is a double-edged sword. I mean, it's like anything where in some ways it can help you to get stuff made, but in other ways it totally gets in the way. Fame can be really bad for you. There's a lot of really negative things that come along with it because essentially you're exposed to the judgments of the public at large who have no real idea of what's going on in your life, and these things that they think can totally ruin your career potentially. And here's the thing, fame is really distracting, okay? And Stanley wasn't interested in being distracted. All he wanted to do was to make his films. Anything else was just, who cares?
Is that something you can relate to?
Yeah. I have a really hard time dealing with the modicum of fame that I've received. It's not easy, especially being a sensitive person.
Not me. I love being famous robot on the internet.
Oh, yeah.
Most famous robot movie critic.
You're a movie critic.
Best robot artist.
Yes, your fish monster is just gonna go on to win so many awards.
Thank you. And I can take a compliment, unlike some people.
Teacher, tell me about conspiracy theories.
Well, Space Brain, I can't go into full detail because that would require its own show in and of itself. But what I can give you is a rundown of some of the top conspiracy theories going on, and then you can go do some research on your own.
Like what?
First of all, you have Stanley Kubrick faking the footage of the moon landing for the US government. That's like a big one. That's like a huge one. Then you also have a lot of conspiracy theories surrounding The Shining in particular. Some people say that The Shining is a confession from Kubrick that he did in fact fake the moon landings. And then there's Eyes Wide Shut. I mean, that's a whole other thing, okay? Like, Eyes Wide Shut's my favorite one to really think about. And that one, I mean, you could talk about MK Ultra mind control, programming stuff, Illuminati stuff, Scientology stuff. I mean, there is so much stuff going on. And there's also the conspiracy that Kubrick may or may not have been killed for what was in Eyes Wide Shut. I mean, there's that whole thing too.
And that's what the missing 18 minutes would reveal?
Possibly. I would like to see what those missing minutes are, but whatever.
Will we ever know?
Probably not, but it's really fun to think about, and I highly recommend watching the documentary Room 237, which is specifically about all of the different people's conspiracy theories around The Shining.
Teacher, when are you gonna do your own Eyes Wide Shut conspiracy files?
Well, you know, I've been working on my own theories of what's going on in Eyes Wide Shut. I don't want to get sued by Tom Cruise, and I don't want to piss off Scientology. One of the things that sets Kubrick apart from other filmmakers is how he reinvented himself with each of his films, hopping from genre to genre. Political satire, black comedy, period piece, horror, erotic drama, science fiction. The man could do anything and do it better in only a way that he could. His perfectionism is a testament to his level of care when making his films, being involved in every aspect from pre-production to the marketing around his films after their release. It's crazy. Even the movie posters. He would give notes on the movie posters even. It's like, this guy was not playing.
How did he give notes on the movie posters?
Well, he would contact an artist that he wanted to create his movie poster, then kind of give him a rundown. The artist would come back, give him a couple different ideas, and then he would be like, no, 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 yes, and then they would kind of work it out back and forth. During his career, Stanley Kubrick developed a way of storytelling that doesn't give easy answers to the complex issues he explored. Some people say his films seem emotionally cold and distant, but what I see is a deliberate choice to back away from giving his own moral judgments, encouraging his audience to use their own minds to come up with their own interpretations. Because that's the thing. He makes films that play much more upon the viewer's subconscious than their intellect, so that anyone can enjoy his films. What you get out of a Kubrick film is a great way to measure how much depth you yourself are capable of bringing to a film. One can enjoy his movies on the surface level, but one can also get lost in a veritable rabbit hole when trying to decipher the deeper meanings behind his movies.
Rabbit hole.
Rabbit hole.
Is that you?
Yeah, I got stuck in a Kubrick rabbit hole till 5 a.m. the other night doing some weird Eyes Wide Shut conspiracy research. It's a lot of stuff. Saturn death cults, you know. Stanley Kubrick was in a league all of his own. A brilliant mind, always pushing the boundaries of filmmaking while also using the medium to explore complex ideas about what it means to be human. Never telling his viewers what to think, he instead chose to light up his audience's imagination, making them think and question the world around them. And as the man himself once stated, the most terrifying fact about the universe is not that it is hostile, but that it is indifferent. But if we can come to terms with this indifference, then our existence as a species can have genuine meaning. However vast the darkness, we must supply our own light. Okay, class, now it's time for your homework assignments. First of all, just go watch the films. All of them. It doesn't matter. Watch them in chronological order. Watch them in alphabetical order. Just go watch them. In fact, I have the Visionary Filmmaker collection on Blu-ray, although this doesn't have Dr. Strangelove in it, and I had to go buy it separately. I also highly recommend the documentary Stanley Kubrick, A Life in Pictures, directed by his brother-in-law who produced his last 4 movies. Also, pick up Stanley Kubrick Interviews, a book collecting all of the interviews that he gave on many topics, including literature, religion, violence, space, and technology. Speaking of interviews, go online and listen to the super rare audio from his extensive chats with physicist and writer Jeremy Bernstein, whose mutual love of chess earned him unprecedented access on the set of 2001. Join us next time on Greater Creators, where we're going to discuss the works of other amazing creators who influenced generations. Class dismissed.